Every week, numerous medical papers are published. Many of them report significant findings, impressive metrics, large data sets, confident conclusions. And once something is published, it carries a certain authority. But publication is not proof, and reading a paper is not the same as understanding its strength. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I judge a clinical research paper in 10 minutes before deciding whether it deserves further attention. Why should we even care about research papers? That's because claims enter medicine through evidence which is published in these papers. In healthcare, these papers shape clinical guidelines, influence funding decisions, and can even influence clinical behavior. But a published paper is not the same as a proven solution. And most of us have never been taught how to read a research paper. So this isn't about dismissing research. It's about having a structured first pass, 10 minutes, to make a decision whether you need to spend further time reading this paper or you are better off looking elsewhere. Based on my experience of being a researcher for almost 2 decades, let me give you my approach to how I make a decision on any research paper. It's a sequence of 8 steps that you can take inspiration from, and then you can customize for your own workflow. But the point is, it's not humanly possible that anytime you get a paper, you sit and try to read it in one go. It just doesn't work given the volume of paper that gets published. So you need to have at least a first pass to make a decision whether it's worth spending further time on it or not. And I have a 10-minute pass to make that decision. So the first thing is you need to figure out what kind of paper this is. Not every paper is the same. So the kind of papers that you could come across, one of them is what we call original research. You could also have a review paper. It could also be an opinion, which might be an editorial, or it might be an invited commentary to comment on an issue or another original research paper that has just been published. Or it might be something around providing some guidelines or framework. Different paper types will make different claims. In this video, I'm going to talk about original research. Generally, these would be the kind of papers that claims to generate new clinical evidence about a clinical problem. So first, figure out the kind of research paper that you are reading. 2, start with the abstract. Abstract is something that many people just skim. I contend that in the entire paper, the place that you need to focus and read closely in the first iteration, it's the abstract. Once you read the abstract, it should be able to give you a coherent story about 1. The problem being addressed. 2. The population that is being studied. 3. What was done. 4. What was the outcome that was measured. 5. What is being claimed. If I can't understand the study after reading an abstract, that already tells me something. Usually when you see clarity in the summary, that often reflects clarity in the work itself. Once I read the abstract, the third thing I do is I skim the introduction. And the reason I skim the introduction is to get a feel for the background, if I'm a bit new to the topic, or just to get a feel for how the problem has been framed. But what I'm really trying to get at the introduction is to figure out what kind of clinical problem is this paper attempting to solve. Is it something to do about a diagnosis? Is it about prognosis? Is it about treatment effectiveness? Is it something to do with service delivery? Is it a paper about policy? And then also to figure out if the problem that is being addressed is that meaningful. You would be surprised how often it is the case that you might have a very clear description of the method, but the problem framing is vague. Number 4, I move on to the method section and then try to figure out who does this study apply to. So it would be trying to figure out things like what kind of setting was the data collected in? Is it primary care or secondary care or tertiary care or community or home monitoring, etc.? The geography, the location, also things like, is it single center, is it multi-center, the time period that was covered, and exclusions. As important as it is to figure out from whom the data was collected, it is equally important and perhaps more important, to also figure out which kind of people were excluded. Evidence that applies to a narrow population does not automatically generalize. Understanding who the study represents is often more informative than the sample size. Number 5. After figuring out the population, I then move on to figure out what is the study design. Is this an observational study? Is it a randomized study? Is it retrospective? Is it prospective? For example, if it's an observational study, it's really good at showing associations, but we have to be really careful not to infer causations from those studies in general. Retrospective studies often overestimate real-world performance. So this is not about dismissing certain study designs. It's about ensuring that the inference or the claims that are made are aligned with the study design. After that, number 6, I move on to the outcome. I try to understand what the outcome is. Why this outcome? Why the time frame in which that outcome has been defined? Is it clinically meaningful? Is it a surrogate marker? Is it something that is easy to measure but difficult to action on? A study can be methodologically sound, but it might still measure an outcome that is not clinically meaningful. Also, it's worth stating that high statistical significance does not equate to clinical relevance. 7. Once I am satisfied with all the previous steps, only then I go to the results section and try to figure out what's going on beyond the headline metric. It would be trying to answer things like what effect size is being reported, what uncertainty surrounds it, what trade-offs are implied, are subgroup analysis sensible? The magnitude and the context of the results, they matter more than whether the p-value crosses 0.05. Finally, I ask, what would change as a result of this paper? Would it alter clinical behavior? Would it shift policy? Would it justify further trials? Or is it hypothesis generating? A paper may be interesting without being practice changing. In fact, that is way more common than people who are not in this area might assume. This 10-minute pass is not meant to figure out whether a given paper is correct or not. It's only meant to ensure that I can figure out whether the paper is likely to be practice changing, or is it preliminary, or whether it's exploratory or promising, and to make sure that I only invest my time going further on papers that are likely to give me a high return on investment, on my time investment. And given the volume of papers that gets published now, such an approach is essential, and we have to triage, otherwise it becomes impossible for any researcher to keep up